So you're thinking about moving to Metro Detroit, Michigan. Well, you might want to know where some of the worst cities are right here in Metro Detroit. So if that's why you're here, stick around because we're getting after it right now. What's going on, you guys? Eric Meldrum here, your Michigan real estate agent. I've lived in Michigan my whole entire life. I grew up in Metro Detroit and I know a thing or two about it. So in this video, we're talking all about the worst cities to live in, Metro Detroit. But before we get into that, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're returning to our channel, welcome back. Thanks for hanging out with us. I make videos about all things Metro Detroit. We got vlog tours, property tours, and videos just like this where I help answer some common questions you might have before moving here. So we want to be the best resource for you. So whether you're moving in 1 month or 1 year from now, do not hesitate to give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email. All my contact information is down below, and we'd be happy to help you make a smooth move here to Michigan. And if this information is helpful, then hit that subscribe button and smash that bell so you're notified every time we come out with a new video. So what is the criteria for figuring out if a city is on the worst cities list right here in Metro Detroit? Well, we got our criteria here and we're going to go over it. So we're talking about population, we're talking about average home value, average income in that area, the crime ratings, the school ratings, and much more. So a little bit of a disclaimer before we get into this, guys. All this information that I'm sharing with you is accessible online. This is all public information. None of this is of my opinion. As a realtor, there's only so many things I can say. I can't steer you away from other areas. So I would encourage you to do your own research on this. But based on the facts and based on the statistics that we're going to present to you today, these are the worst cities in Michigan based on the criteria that we're going over. All right, so we're getting right into it, guys. Let's talk about the first city on our list, which is number 10 worst city here in Metro Detroit, and that's none other than Warren, Michigan. So overall, Warren, Michigan gets a B rating. Now, Warren is located in Metro Detroit, and the population is right around 134,000 people. We have an average home value of around 132,000. Now, 30% of the people in Warren end up renting as opposed to buying a home. Why is that important? Well, if people are renting in a specific area and that rental rate is really high, that means homeownership is not desirable there. That's not a good sign for a city. So if we see low rent in Warren, that means we do have a lot of people living there. People choose to own a home, which means they technically kind of enjoy living there. So 30% rent. The crime rating for the city is a C-, and the average income per household is $51,000. Now, Warren also has some decent schools. They're a C+ rating. So overall, Warren's got a B, but guys, remember, we are going downhill. So next up on our list is the 9th worst city here in Metro Detroit, which is Hamtramck, Michigan. Now, Hamtramck gets an overall B rating. And it's a little bit weird. If you look at the map, Hamtramck is literally surrounded by Detroit. There's only one other city that is the same, which is Highland Park, and there's a little bit of history here. So back in the day when Henry Ford, the Dodge brothers, which is known as Chrysler, FCA, Stellantis, they've had so many name changes I can't even keep up with them. But these guys said, look, we want to be in Detroit, we want to build our businesses here, but we are building so much wealth that we're just not going to pay Detroit taxes. And back then, I'm assuming they were pretty high, or for some reason they didn't want to pay them. So they said, screw you, we're going to do our own thing. And we started Hamtramck and Highland Park. So those two have not changed. They are right in the middle of Detroit, and they're their own cities. So the population in Hamtramck is right around 21,000 people. We have $72,000 for the average house in Hamtramck. 44% of people rent in Hamtramck. So as that number goes up, you can see, most people don't want to live there. The high rent population is taking over. And the crime in Hamtramck gets a C rating. So average income, $29,000 per year. So when you compare that to the average house at $72,000 and somebody making around $30,000, we ask, is that affordable? And with those numbers, it definitely is. The schools in Hamtramck, they're pretty poor. They're going to get a C rating as well. All right, so we're moving a little bit closer to where I grew up, and we're talking about number 8th worst city here in Metro Detroit, which is East Point, Michigan. East Point's going to get a C+ rating overall. We went from the B's and now we've slid it down into the C's. So guys, this is getting worse. So make sure you stick around to the end to know what the worst city here in Metro Detroit actually is. But in terms of population in East Point, we got 32,000 people. The average home in East Point is going to run you right around $83,000, and 32% of the people rent in East Point. Now, the crime, it's going to get a C rating. You have the average income at $49,000 per year. So with an $83,000 home value, income's right around $50,000, give or take a few. Very affordable place to live. But the school system is not great. The school system got a D+ rating. So if you're looking for better schools, East Point might not be the place for you. All right, so next up on the list is the 7th worst city in Metro Detroit, which is Pontiac, Michigan. Pontiac has an overall rating of a C+. Now, when we look at the population there, we have about 60,000 residents in Pontiac. The average home is going to run you right around $73,000. And this number actually shocked me. 57% of people in Pontiac are renting. And when I look at that number, again, rentals versus homeownership, that's a clear indication of, do people value living there? Are they there for the long haul? Are they buying houses? Do they value homeownership? And with a 57% rental number in Pontiac, that makes sense because I've been through Pontiac quite often. I have to get through Pontiac to go to Rochester, where we do a lot of work. And when I'm driving through, the area is definitely run down. So when you have a high rental rate like that, you're going to see some of the areas where people don't value homeownership. They're going to let things go a little bit more. They're not going to say, well, this is my house, I'm going to take care of it. Homes are not kept up, and that brings the values of homes down in those areas. So crime ratings in Pontiac is a C-, and then we have an average household income of a $34,000 per year. And the school system, not a great school system in Pontiac. We have a D rating according to niche.com. All right, so next up on our list is the 6th worst city right here in Metro Detroit, and that is none other than Detroit itself. So Detroit overall gets a C+ rating. Now, I think this is where a lot of it stems from, and it's really kind of interesting that Detroit's kind of right in the middle of my list here, because this is where a lot of the growth happened for Metro Detroit in the early days when we had Metro Detroit being built out because people were being pushed out of the city. So without further ado, let's get into the stats on Detroit. Population of 672,000. Average home value in Detroit's right around $52,000. Now, there's some really cool real estate in Detroit. Now, don't get me wrong, $52,000 might not buy you a lot in the areas of Detroit that you're looking in, but it can sure buy you a few homes on the outskirts. The nicer areas in Detroit, those places, there's homes for sale that are $1 million. There's condo lofts downtown Detroit that are $1.5, $2 million. There have been homes in districts of Detroit that have sold for $3 million. So the real estate is really beautiful. It's very historic, very old, very cool to look at. And, showing homes down there, we really enjoy it. So if you're somebody looking to move to Detroit, we got the best areas for us. Just reach out, drop a comment below if you know an area that you love when you visited Detroit. I'd love to hear about it. Now, the crime in Detroit, that's a C- rating. Now, when you're looking to be downtown, I feel really safe in the downtown area. But as the outskirts of Detroit start getting a little bit more sketchy, those are the areas that have a lot of the crime. So if you look on the crime map, again, you guys can see where some of those areas are that have higher crime rates than others. But the average income in Detroit for an average household income is $32,000. So compared to the home value, you can pretty much buy a home based on a year's salary, right? But the school system, again, not great. A D+ for the school system in Detroit. And next up on our list is the 5th worst city in Metro Detroit, which is Hazel Park. Now, overall C+ rating for Hazel Park. Smaller city. We got about 16,000 people in Hazel Park. The average home value is $86,000. So we're getting up there. We're almost to $100,000 now. But 45% of the people in Hazel Park rent. And then you also have a C+ crime rating. You have the average household income at $43,000. And in the school systems, again, not so great, D+. So all these things combined, Hazel Park is a C+ rating. And the biggest thing that I think we're seeing the theme of here on this list is crime is high, the schools are not great, it's lower income on the bracket. So for those reasons, you're starting to see a theme on why some of these cities are ranked some of the worst cities here in Metro Detroit. And the 4th worst city here in Metro Detroit is a city called Ecorse. Now, when I came up on the list, I was like, where the heck is Ecorse? I've never even heard of it. So it's a little bit west of Detroit, kind of downriver a little bit, but it's a very, very small town. So a very small town with a population of just under 10,000 people. So I was almost hesitant to not even put this on the list because you might not even consider moving here, but since it's on the rankings, I'm going to keep it here. But overall, Ecorse gets a C rating, population just under 10,000 people, home values right around $43,000 for your average house in Ecorse. You have a 35% population of people that rent, and crime rating is a C minus, and you also have an average household income of $34,000 per year, with a school system rating of a D minus for Ecorse. So next up on the list is the third worst city in Metro Detroit, which is Flint, Michigan. Now, you've probably heard of Flint from the news, either for murder capital or terrible water, depending on which channel you're watching, but it's known for all of those. Little secret. And the Flint area was really struggling when the automotive industry pulled out. And Ford, GM, all the big three, they used to manufacture a lot of cars there, and a lot of the plants there employed a ton of people in the area. When they pulled out, it left a lot of people unemployed, which is going to bring some hard times to any city, and it just never recovered. Now the crime started going up, then things started piling on, the city got a little bit corrupt, the infrastructure was deteriorating, and it just kept going downhill and downhill. That led us to the water crisis in Flint that everybody's heard about. So a lot of things happening in Flint, Michigan, but population of 95,000 people, average household income right around $30,000 per year, and the average house is going to cost you right around $31,000. So again, another city where you could literally make a full year's salary and go buy a house. Not that you're going to want to, but it's possible if you do. 43% of the people who live in Flint end up renting, and the crime rating is a C minus, and the school system is a C. I thought the school system would have probably been a D, but it is a C. Next up on our list, the second worst city here in Metro Detroit, Inkster, Michigan. Now, Inkster has an overall C rating. Most people call Inkster, I think, Stinkster. So it's kind of fitting, right? It's number 2 worst city here in Metro Detroit. There's a reason it's got the name Stinkster. So what is Stinkster all about? Well, 24,000 people who live there, $51,000 is going to get you a house there on average. You got 60% of people renting in Inkster. That's the highest rental percentage on our entire list. So many people are renting there. You have a crime rating of a C minus. The average household income is right around $32,000, and the school system is a C rating. Again, I would have thought the school system would have been a D rating, but somehow they're pulling out a C out of this. So Stinkster, overall C, not so great. All right, and last but not least, what is the worst city here in Metro Detroit? The number 1 worst city is none other than Highland Park. Now, Highland Park has an overall C minus rating. If it could be a D, I would just say, like, you're a D, like maybe even F. It's probably the worst city I've ever seen. Like, looking at these stats, it's absolutely terrible. So Highland Park, if you remember earlier in the video, talked about 2 cities that were inside of Detroit itself, Hamtramck and Highland Park. These are the 2 cities that Ford, the Dodge brothers, all of the automakers said, we're not going to do your thing, Detroit. We got our own cities. Well, Highland Park is really struggling to the tune that the city's broke. They're about $24 million in debt in terms of their water bill alone. That's not including all the other debt they probably have in the city. DTE, the power company, actually came into Highland Park and ripped telephone poles and electric poles out of the ground because they didn't pay their electricity bill. That's pretty messed up. I mean, to the point where residents now have no streetlights. Residents have really nothing to do in the evening but look out at their front porch in darkness. So pretty crazy when you think about it. The other thing that's crazy about Highland Park, there's absolutely no school system. There's no schools left in Highland Park. So school system, I mean, non-existent, it's an F. People who live in Highland Park actually have to go to Ferndale and other areas that are surrounding it, so they send their kids elsewhere. But the stats on Highland Park, population of 10,000, which is dwindling. It's going to be basically 0 at some point, I'm sure. Detroit's going to have to absorb whatever they're doing. The home values, it's right around $20,000. So it's not by any much. I'm sure the house is condemned or needs a lot of work. And 60% of the people end up renting in the city as well. Crime rating is a C-, and the average income kind of shocked me. It's right around $50,000 per year. So you could probably buy like 2 houses with your salary. But again, school system, non-existent. All right, so there you have it, guys. You got 10 cities that are the worst cities right here in Metro Detroit. I'm not trying to throw shade on any of these cities, so before you guys are throwing shade down in the comments below, remember, this was based on statistics. This is based on the criteria that we went over and based on the rankings of the city. None of this is my own personal opinion. If you do have questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Drop a comment below. If you know a great area in one of these cities, I'd love to hear it, right? I'd love to hear some good positive things about these cities, on people rebuilding or doing cool things in there. I know they exist. We just got to find those areas and make sure you do your research on all the areas that you're moving to. So if this information was helpful for you guys, then go ahead and subscribe and hit that little bell so you're the first to learn about every new video we put out. And hey, if you're moving here in 1 month or 1 year from now, we want to help you do just that. So give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email. Got all my contact information down below, and we'll be happy to help you make a smooth move here to Michigan. We of course want to be the best resource for you when doing so. So until next time, guys, go enjoy these other videos all about Metro Detroit, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.